Yeah. 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 Um, so my name is Emily Wu Truong. My parents were born in Taiwan. However, my grandparents were influenced by Japanese culture, um, because Taiwan used to be ruled by the Japanese people, by the Japanese government. So my grandparents know Japanese, and they even lived in Japan too, in Miyazaki Prefecture. And I remember when I was a kid, our family would go visit them in Japan. And it was a very nice experience because my grandmother was very loving. She would buy me and my sister and my female cousins things from Sanrio, like Hello Kitty, Little Twin Star. And, whenever I think of my grandmother, I think of those things that she used to give us as gifts. And one other thing that was so amazing of my grandmother was that she would write letters in English to learn to communicate and practice her English with her grandchildren. And so she would send letters from Japan to the US. It was just, I think her letter writing maybe even encouraged me to write my own letters, to communicate with others, be pen pals with other people. And yeah, whenever I think of my grandmother, I think of her love. And she was actually the first person in my family that died when I was in college. And back then, they don't really tell you about grief support groups. So I was immensely impacted by her death. She passed away from, I think it was liver cancer. And I actually stayed at the hospital with her one night. And, I may sound like I'm tearing up and crying, but it's a memory of love. Me remembering her love. And, but I think it's always very important to remember your loved ones, because it keeps their spirit alive. So I feel like her love lives in me, and I keep her spirit of love going by talking about her. So even at the funeral, I said a few words and about my experience with my grandmother, and it was touching to many people. So, but yeah, anyways, I don't think I actually ever talk about, this is the first time I'm talking about my grandmother in a public speaking engagement. But I think that her impact was so profound on my life that, it helped me to just, like, how do you honor your elders? And I feel like when I was a kid, she let me hug her. Like, Asians usually are not typically known for hugging, or using affectionate words. I didn't learn the phrase "suki desu" or "aishiteru," until like college, and how in the Japanese culture to say such words is very deep. And so even when I met the Japanese students in college, they felt that hugging, physical touch is very foreign to them. But when I hugged them, they were like, wow, this is different. But they liked it, you know. And when I was growing up, I was always a hugger. I like to hug people. I was very affectionate. But in high school, like my high school friends, girl group, they were all girls. They kicked me out of their group because I talked about boys too much and because I hugged too much. That was their reason for why they kicked me out of their group. So having to navigate that, you know, the friendship world in high school and my teenage years, it was very difficult because I don't know who are my real friends. Who, you know, sometimes kids will throw out the phrase, best friends forever. Is that really true? Not always. A lot of the times it's not. Because people come and go in your life. And it's hard to know who's going to stay in your life. And it's hard to know who will stick around and who will. I mean, that's why I love the character Stitch, Lilo and Stitch from Disney movie. Because Stitch says, does anyone know what the popular saying in the Lilo and Stitch movie is? No? Ohana. Ohana means family. Family means no one gets left behind or forgotten. So that phrase touched my heart deeply. Because when I was a kid growing up, I felt so disconnected from the world. I feel like I'm different. Why do I like to think about the meaning of life? None of my classmates know how to do this. They can't relate. They just want to talk about celebrities and gossip. I have no connection with that. I want to understand, why do we even exist? Why are we here? And so none of my classmates, none of my friends knew how to talk about this subject with me. And it just made me feel like an alien. And so I, you know, continue to just live life day to day. And I, you know, so the way I was able to become a mental health advocate was that I actually been doing a lot of speaking engagements since 2010. My first one was with the San Marino Chinese Club PTA. And I talked to a group of parents who, and the topic was addressing the generation disconnect. Because a lot of the times when Asian parents want their kids to do something, you know, it's hard for them to connect because the kids want to do something else. And so it's hard for parents and kids to listen to each other because, you know, if you're born in a different country, you're accustomed to a culture that is different. But when you come to the United States, the culture is also very different here. And so when children of immigrant parents are clashing because of different value system, it hurts the family because it's hard to see eye to eye. And so I always felt like I could not see eye to eye with my family, my parents. I could not easily express myself because they did not know how to have those deep conversations. And I was yearning for them. And so I would try to, navigating the friendship world was hard because I was bullied. I And so my way of trying to connect and fulfill this yearning for emotional connection came with dating and boys. So that was, in a sense, that was my coping skill. And for me, I actually was very courageous because if I felt like a boy liked me, then I would, and I liked them, I would say something. And so because I wanted that connection, I yearned for it. And so dating was my coping skill. And but later on, post, let's see, I'm actually a suicide attempt survivor. In college, there was one boyfriend that I had, and I loved him so deeply. But he broke up with me. He was afraid that I had cheated on him, but I indeed did not. But he did not believe me. In essence, I gave him my heart, and he would not have me back. And when I had found out that he was sleeping with a girl 2 doors down from my home, that was the night I wanted to kill myself. I wanted to choke myself to death because I was in that much pain. But in the back of my mind, I thought about my sister, and I thought she would not want me to die. And so I will just keep on going. At the time, there was no such, I heard nothing about like National Suicide Prevention Hotline. That was back in maybe 1998 or 99. No, sorry, 2002 or 2003. And so I just kept on living and keeping myself occupied with work, busying to distract myself. And another drama was that like I had found out that my college roommate, she like fell in love with my ex-boyfriend, the same guy. So like that caused a lot of drama too, because she used to say to me, oh, girl code, you don't date your friend's exes. But she fell in love with him and wrote him a 2-page love letter. I didn't know how to deal with my anger. When I gave him, after giving him the ex-boyfriend silent treatment for a few months, I finally let it all out. I let my anger out. I yelled at the top of my lungs over the phone. I was so angry. But when I look back on this, I see that we were just kids. We didn't know better. We didn't have the healthy coping skills that I do have now. People talk about healthier communication, Now we talk about how to set healthy boundaries. We had none of that kind of discussion back when I was younger. And so I'm able to put all that, even though as painful as that was back then, I learned to forgive myself and I learned to forgive them. Because to hold on to the anger is like holding on to poison. It's not good for my mental health. I want peace in my heart. And so Maya Angelou, she says, when you know better, you do better. And so I think sometimes like these life events, these life challenges are present to allow us to learn how to handle this kind of situation next time, if there's a next time. And I think that when we think about mental health, we think about what's wrong with us. No, we also need to think about what's right with us. I think our Asian culture is very into perfectionism. But we're not robots. We are not robots. We are human beings. We need to treat ourselves as humans. We need to rest. And rest is part of productivity. How can you keep on working so much and not rest? You have to rest and recuperate in order to have energy. And so I think I used to do a lot of mental health advocacy in 2013 to 2017, some in 2018, but I got burnt out. I got jaded. I got emotionally exhausted to the point I thought I might not return back to mental health. I might not return back to mental health advocacy and be lady in green, because many people know that the pink ribbon stands for breast cancer awareness, but not that many people know that this color stands for mental health awareness. So if you were to talk to like Chiaki and Takako, they saw me at NAMI walks years ago, where I would dress up in with a green, Miyuki too. Miyuki saw my lime green wig, my lime green hat. I would wear a tutu. I can even share some pictures with you. They're on my Facebook page. But I would
together. That was a good party.
Yeah, it was really fun. I mean, I had an extra one, and so it was just like, okay, let's have fun together. And so if Lady Gaga can be a fashion statement, so can I. And so I had fun with it. It was I'll share my screen with you if I'm able to. Let's see. I think I can. Oh, yes, I can. Okay, so here. Can you see this? So this is some of the things that I used to wear, when I go out and the green wig, bright green clothes. This is Dr. Ellen Sachs from USC. This is at NAMI Walks, one of the last NAMI Walks I went to in maybe 2018. So, I really wore the green because I wanted to stand out for a good cause. So, yeah, so it was just it was fun. And let's see, so stop sharing. Yeah, so, but yeah, I got so tired because I was just like, having to deal with bureaucracy really sucks. It doesn't feel good to be a token. Token as in, like, someone taking advantage of your passion and, wanting you to just work for free. But it's like, hello, like I've done over 130 speaking engagements. I've gone to colleges to speak to college students. I've done many in our own voice presentations, ending the silence presentations. I've gone as far as Oregon, Tennessee, and Washington, D.C. So people know me, but it was a struggle to try to figure out, like, how do I earn money doing this? And I'm still in that struggle now, because I don't want to like just, work for free, because I know that my time is worthy, that my time is precious. And, but so, but at the same time, I know that I am inspiring people, and I am teaching, or I'm telling people that, hey, there is hope. That even though, I think a lot of the times we can be our own worst enemies. And I was my own worst enemy for a very long time, until I had my own breakthrough. And I opened up my 3rd grade diary back in 2013. And I started crying because I was interacting with my inner child. My inner child carried a lot of pain from growing up. But my older sister, Emily, like present day mature Emily, was realizing for the first time that I was so harsh on myself, that I had many self-limiting thoughts that contributed to my low self-esteem. I relied so much on external validation, people complimenting me, saying, that I did a good job in my work or whatever, like, but if I didn't get that validation, it would hurt me a lot inside, to the point I was crying a lot. And I came to a point where I was like, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I noticed this pattern in me, and something has got to change. And so that's where I decided I was going to work on deactivating my triggers. And I shared with a therapist at the time that about the time when I opened up my 3rd grade diary, because my older self, when looking at my 3rd grade diary, she said, wow, Emily, you are such a bright, expressive young little girl. You're so talented. I'm so sorry I lied to you all your life. I'm sorry I said you are stupid, you are slow, and you're not worthy. Those were all lies. I don't want to work against you anymore. I want to work for you. And that was a powerful shift in me, because that was the start of me learning how to become my own best friend. And when I learned to access my inner child, and embrace her. I have interactions with her conscientiously, and to the point where the big sister inside me interacts with little Emily and says to her, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you for being able to overcome and surpass all of those difficult moments in your life. I'm so proud of you. You experience so much emotional pain without having the guidance, without having the much mentorship, without having healthy coping skills. You survived suicidal thoughts. You didn't take your own life. Thank you for holding on to life. I'm so proud of you. And it's like I'm having this hug with my inner child, my younger self. And my younger self says to my older, mature self today, thank you for being my voice. When I felt like I was voiceless, that I felt seen but not heard. Thank you. Thank you for being my voice and being the voice of all the young Emilys out there who don't feel like they have a voice. Thank you. An older sister says to me, older sister says to young Emily, you're never alone. You will never be alone because I'm here with you. You are my precious little Emily. I will never forsake you. I will always be here for you because I love you. I'm like, when I get to this, when I tell this kind of story, like my hands feel so like different. I'm like having some kind of different physical feeling in my body. And but it's so powerful and it's very healing. And the therapist that I had talked to before, when I would describe these kinds of interactions with myself, they said, this is very good because you are soothing yourself. You are soothing your inner child. And, you know, like me being the youngest in my family, I didn't have any, you know, younger siblings. I was the baby. I have an older brother who's 8 years older. I have an older sister who's 5 years older. And so I've never really, you know, seen a kid grow up until my sister's baby grew up. She, you know, I got to see her son grow up from being, you know, from his being in his her belly to being a newborn to being a baby to a toddler to a, you know, young like elementary school student. Yeah, and I would just see how precious he is. And I realized for myself when I was, you know, watching him grow, I'm like, I saw how precious this little life was. Like, I can't help but see how precious of a miracle he is. But I also realized that I never saw how precious I was when I was a kid. I didn't see that. But now that my big sister exists conscientiously in my mind, she says, you've always been precious since you were born. And never in a million years would I ever want you to kill yourself, because you are precious and you are priceless. One NAMI conference that I went to, I think it was the NAMI conference in San Francisco, and there was one speaker, and she held out a $20 bill. And she asked everyone, who wants this $20 bill? Well, you know, everybody raises their hand. So she takes this $20 bill and she crumples it up. Okay, who wants this $20 bill? Everybody raises their hand. And then what she does is she throws the crumpled $20 bill on the floor. And she steps all over it. She stomps on it. She picks it up again and she asks everyone, who wants this $20 bill? Everybody raises their hand. And so she says, each one of us is like that dollar bill. The moment you are born, your worth has never changed, despite being crumbled, despite anything you've been through in your life. You may feel broken inside, but you have always been precious and your value has never changed. This is why in the Japanese culture, I really like how, you know, those bowls that break and they use gold to put them back together again. That's what we're like. We're put together again with that gold. More beautiful and precious and even more wise. And so that is the kind of message that I want to share with the younger generation and with anyone who will listen. Because sometimes we feel like the things that we go through in our lives tear us apart and make us feel so broken. Who would want to love us? No, but we are so loved. We're so worthy. We're so precious. And so I feel like for me, the mental health movement is like a love revolution to help people to learn how to love themselves. Because sometimes we lose touch. We give into reacting to things, and hurt people. And if we could become more conscientious of how we affect other people, that is so important. I'm actually doing a workshop on healthier communication for happier families for a Taiwanese women's association. Because the way we speak to each other between any relationship, parent, child, married couple, friendships, communication is so important. Like, I even told my mom, like, if you have something serious to say, can you please just call me? Because when you sound angry in your text, I can't tell how angry you are or not, just call me, even through email. Trying to talk about serious things through email is not efficient. It is not constructive. So I always encourage heart-to-heart, in-face, or virtual meetings, so you can hear the tone of voice, right? Tone of voice is very important when you're communicating to people that you care about. And so it's so even if you want good relationships in your family, which I know in the Asian culture, family is so important. That's why I do speaking engagements with parents, because I want them to see how much the way they talk to their children makes a huge difference. If you come into an argument with I'm right, you're wrong, you're not going to get anywhere. Those are not constructive, because then you invalidate the other person and you make yourself sound superior than the other one. But if you come into the conversation with a calm manner and say something like, sweetie, I noticed that you did this when the other day, and it made me feel awkward. It actually it hurt my feelings, but I don't know if that is the intention of what you were trying to do. Could you please explain to me what happened? I don't want to make assumptions. So when you speak this way to the other person, then you give them a chance to share their point of view. And they could say, oh, I'm so sorry. That really wasn't my intention. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings, and I'm sorry. This is where I was coming from. And then they explain their side of the story. And when you come to this conversation with an open mind and open ears, you can have a better conversation, a better dialogue where you heal instead of hurt. So another thing that happened in 2013 with my family was that I was so gung-ho about, very eager to share my story. So I shared my story with a Chinese newspaper. They interviewed me in English, but they wrote the article in Chinese, and my, Chinese reading skills are not that good. And so I didn't know what it said, but my parents were so embarrassed. And if you translate the article title from Chinese to English, it was "Victim of Perfectionist Parents Speaks Out." So my parents were very embarrassed. And my mom's reaction was, how could you do this to me? Are you really my daughter? Do I have to disown you? There were many tears, so many tears. And at a meal that I had with my parents and my husband spoke on my behalf while I was crying. And my husband said, she's not trying to blame you. She's trying to say that she is one of many immigrant kids, she is one of many kids of immigrant families that never really felt like her voice mattered and that she struggled. So it's not, it's not, she's not trying to blame you. She's just trying to say this is a cultural issue. In Asian culture, we are taught to save face. Don't share your problems or you'll bring shame to yourself and the family. And, you know, I never liked I never liked living in shame. It made me feel like I lived two different lives. I felt like Mulan, like I will never be who my parents want me to be. I will never be like my cousin who is getting her graduate school degree at an Ivy League school and has a full-time job with Google. Those kinds of comments from Asian parents do not help. It actually made me feel worse about myself because I was thinking, all right, mama, you want her as your daughter instead? Asian parents and some parents in general like to live vicariously through their kids. Yes, you brought them into this world, but you can live your own dreams too. I think kids need to learn how to live their own life. But it's hard when you have parents who are overbearing and want you to live the life that they want you to live. But it's not to say that, you know, those traditional Asian parents are terrible. Because when I talk to college students, I tell them, you know what? Your parents love you, or your parents parent you the way they grew up, the way they knew how, or so they parent based on how they grew up. And that's what they know. So they pass that on to the next generation. And they don't realize that it's actually doesn't help. And that's where it's so important for the younger generation to find their family outside their family, to find someone that they can trust and confide in. And even that's hard because when you're navigating the friendship world, sometimes, you know, some people are not, we have to learn like who is toxic, who is emotionally unhealthy for us. So we don't get into situations where we feel taken advantage of or whatnot. And so there's just so many things at play that were never really talked about when anyone was growing up. But that's where we can change that dialogue. We can stop blaming and start changing the way we are. And so after that article was published, so back to that meal I had with my parents and my husband was talking on my behalf. One thing that my mom said that helped so much was she said, "I'm sorry, we're not perfect parents." That was the first time I ever heard my mom say an apology to me. It was profound. It was helpful and it brought healing to our relationship. And so humility is very important. And having the ability to listen without judgment can also help with build a relationship with someone you care deeply for. And if you want to practice your listening skills, you can say to your loved one, you know what, I see you're struggling. And I just want to let you know that I love you and I care for you. So if you ever need someone to listen to, or, you know, I want to let you know I'm here for you. And just put yourself out there as a way to show your love to your loved one. If they're the person who's struggling, you know, with a mental health challenge. Because I sure would have liked that. But, you know, my parents didn't learn that when they were growing up. They were also taught to obey, because that's how you honor your parents. Like one thing my mom used to say was like, hey, it's not fair. I have to listen to my parents and I have to listen to you. Like, that's not fair. But if you want to build a good relationship and have a healthier family, I think it's like having these dialogues that are calm, not reactive, open-minded, can help build a family. Because, you know, I have to practice this every day too, even with my parents right now, my parents, my husband. And so when I have to be very self-aware, and I have to be very cognizant about when I'm starting to get irritated. Like this hot weather these days, like I get sweaty and stuff, you know? And my mom asked me to do something for her yesterday. And I told her, like, I was like, Mom, your room is so hot. Like, I can help you with this task, but I can't do it right now because I am so hot. Like, I am sweating. It's not a good time for me to help you with this task. And I have some other things I need to take care of, so I need to leave. So, because if I was to stick around and stay and try to help my mom while being sweaty and like getting irritable, I may have snapped at my mom. But I chose to use self-control because I don't want to hurt my mom's feelings. So it's so important to learn how to control your behavior when you start feeling upset and frustrated and annoyed, because you could say things that you regret. But even if you say things that you regret, humility is so important, because apologizing can actually help a family grow closer, I think. And another thing in my family that was really helpful. Okay, so like I said, in 2013 to 2017, I did a lot of mental health advocacy, which included organizing my own events, finding small grants to put on a conference, collaborating with other nonprofits to host such an event. And I put together an event with the Asian Youth Center in San Gabriel. And it was a bilingual event. I think I titled the article, I titled the event like something along the lines of family and bringing family together. And so it was a bilingual event. It was in English and Mandarin Chinese. And I invited my parents to come. Funny thing is that my mom, she's like, okay, we'll come to your event, but don't tell other people that we're there. And guess what? Towards the end of that event, I said, and here are my parents. Without them, I would not be here. I would not be born into this world if it were not for my parents. And I shared how each one of them helped to shape me to be who I am today. My dad is a hard worker. He used to be poor. He came from a poor family, but he made something out of himself and became a doctor to help provide for our family. My mother, she likes to talk about Taiwan politics, because she doesn't want Taiwan to be swallowed by China. And she goes back to Taiwan to go vote. So I feel like she kind of imparted her civic engagement, sort of patriotism. And to me, to think about like what is right or wrong in this world, or and so so I wanted to honor them. I wanted to honor them at my event because the article, right, the victim of perfectionist parents speaks out, they were so embarrassed by that. To the point, like my dad was reading the comments like, oh, this is what they're saying, Emily. And I'm like, you don't know who these people are. Why do you care? You know? But when I organized that event and shared, these are my parents and I am proud of them. Despite all the long time misunderstandings we've had, I love them.
Emily,
Yes.
I have 5 minutes. Can you wrap it up? 5 minutes?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And so, I think these kinds of conversations can be very healing in any type of relationship. And but thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here today to share my story with you. And do you guys have any questions for me? I can open it to the floor now.